survived another day. Last day today. Pretty funny. Funny to me, not to Sarah, but pretty funny to me. She doesn't want to quit. I don't think I shared exactly who tagged our first elk, but I shot the first elk. But we were side by side. She hunted alongside with me. She was there. She did everything. She was literally shoulder to shoulder with me, and she couldn't make the shot, so I took it. And it was you couldn't have asked for a better table fare elk. So I said, it was our elk. We did it. Everything together. It's our elk. But now, after she's been hunting and grinding and hiking and beating herself up physically and mentally, she's got it in her right now. I don't want to go home. I don't want to quit. I want my elk. And I'm trying to explain to her, the weather's just too hot. They're not rutting. They're not calling. We've seen so many camps leaving nothing. We came, we got our healthy table fare. We did it. It's a very successful time. So I agreed that we're going to go home and come back. Come back later this month, at the end of the month, and where I know there's a couple of big bulls, and we'll be able to call. I'll call them in. She'll get one, and we'll come back. And we've got a farm at home. Our meat birds are there now to raise. Their chickens, everything. The dog, the kids, the farm, everything. The boats in the water. I got stuff to do. Get caught up on, but it's pretty amazing for me to watch the transition in someone who has never even thought about hunting. And now they're acting like she is a true hunter. She's like, maybe we could just go tomorrow morning one more time. I'm like, it's not going to stop. It's just like when I come up here, I don't leave. When I come up here in the north by myself, I don't leave. I'm not leaving until I get what I came for. And I think she's got it. And now she's at the stage. All of you anglers out there, we're kids. Just one more cast. You just have one more cast, Mom. Which means about 10 more. And she's at the one more cast stage. If we stay one more night, one more morning, and one more night, one more morning. Right? But anyway, I found a spot. You learn more knowledge. As long as your most success in hunting comes from knowing your area, right? I know this area pretty well. It's a new area to me. And I've been figuring out over the past few years. And I've got elk here every year. And I've figured out when and where the big bulls go, how they go, what they do, where they go. And I found a very special place last year on the top of a mountain, fully timbered mountain, never been logged before. And then we went up there and hiked a little further on and found an even more of a special place. When I thought the previous place was special, holy cow, did I find another spot. But the whole side of the mountain on the top is just rubbed raw down to the grain in the dirt. It's the hub for all the elk. And I left some cameras up there this morning. But anyway, she got up at 3:30 this morning with me and hiked straight up in the dark the top of that mountain with me. And sure enough, as I was sitting on one camera, one of the dirt patches, I looked over, she said something, I'm looking at her, she's frozen. And a bull came right to us, and he's right above, staring there. I couldn't see him where I was. And she's having a stare down with it. And I'm just watching her face and trying to coach her through it and talk, whisper, and try to get across from her to me subtly what's going on, because it's staring right at her. But it wasn't a legal bull. It was very exciting. That was success, right? That was a successful day again. And they kept carrying on after that, and then saw more elk. Couldn't tell what they were, slipping through the forest ahead of us, which is very exciting for her. And then it started to rain. Her feet were sore. So we started to hike down the mountain and ran into another few elk, only 12 yards away from us, and had an intense standoff. So it's pretty successful, pretty exciting. So now we're back at camp, and I talked her into it. We're going to pack up and get out of here. And I'm going to leave my trailer and quad stuff with some friends up here in the north. And then we're going to come back later in the month, and we're going to call in a big, mature bull elk for Sarah. And she's going to smash that goal. So anyway, there you go. She's having at it, packing stuff in camp the way she wants to, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go in the woods and get something done as well. Now, that's it for my bad one. So many bears around here. You might be asking why I got a gun with me, but there is so many bears this year, it is absolutely ridiculous. Handful of wolves, but the bears are thick. We got the smell of game around our camp. Now, anyways, this looks like it's a lengthy one, and it's recent. And somebody went out of their way to type all this out. Let's see. I'm gonna read it. Let's see what's up in here. It's Terror in Australia follow-up. Hi, Steve. My name is Andrew Longfield. Yes, I'm an Aussie. Yes, you can use my name. Sorry, it's going to be a long one. I'll try not to ramble. I've watched your channel for over a year now, maybe going on for 2. And what you're reading out keeps stirring up memories for me of things long forgotten. I joined the club in about 1970 when I was 8 years old. We just moved to a city in the south of Victoria after living in small rural towns before that. Anyway, my room was at the back of the house, tacked onto it, and I could slip outside without waking anyone else. This night I was woken up by a loud humming noise coming from outside and getting louder. I jumped up and went out in the backyard, but I couldn't see anything, although the noise kept getting louder. And suddenly, floating slowly about 20 feet above the rooftops came this big, glowing ball. It was probably about 100 feet across with no identifying marks or protrusions, but it had this bright glow coming from inside of it. It flew overhead slowly, then the humming noise changed. It got louder and deeper, and it picked up speed and altitude before disappearing. I was told it was ball lightning because no one believed I'd seen anything like a UFO. It wasn't crackling or sizzling like ball lightning and was way too big. And for the humming to get louder before it accelerated tells me it was probably powered by an engine of sorts and being driven, flown by someone. Anyway, I've always been a loner and enjoyed time fishing or hunting in the bush. I used to enjoy creeping up on wallabies, a type of small kangaroo that's protected by law, without them knowing I was there, and touching them on the back, just to see if the look of surprise and shock on their faces when they turned their head. I usually hunt on my own, and am very familiar with anything that lives in the bush. But in my late teens, I was hunting and could hear footsteps echoing my own. But when I stopped, whatever it was would take another step or two. This has kept happening all of my life. Although I haven't been followed yet at my new home, I have a small cottage in the foothills of the high country in East Gippsland, east of Melbourne, about 10 clicks from the nearest fly speck town, Bragalong. Bragalong? B-R-I-A-G-O-L-O-N-G. Bragalong. I've only been here a few years, and I'm slowly getting back into hunting as I recover from being crushed by a tree. Ouch. I've been followed or shadowed so many times I've lost count. I've tried calling them out and chasing in the direction of the sound, but never saw anything. At first it was terrifying, but as I got used to it, I just got pissed off, although now I sort of go, oh, that again. But it still gives me the chills up my spine. Is there a connection between me seeing that UFO and being shadowed ever since? I've never worked it out. You might be able to make a correlation with all the information you get. I had a very good friend visit me from England, a Palm, and because of his stupendous inability to understand how far apart everything here is in Australia, he decided to drive his high Ace Toyota van to Perth, close to 3,500 kilometers one way. Anyway, on the way back near the border of South Australia and Victoria at about 2 a.m., he was doing 100k when something ran out on the road a couple hundred yards in front of him. He said it stopped in the middle of the road, standing upright. It was about 5 feet tall, and he says about 4 feet broad, and covered in long orange hair. Definitely not ape-like at all, other than the hair. It raised both arms over its head and looked like it was screaming at him. He said he was so scared, he swerved around it without slowing. He held the pedal to the metal for a long time. He is a bold fellow, and has ridden bikes all of his life like me, and I've never seen him even slightly anxious about anything, let alone frightened. Being a Palm, and a bit of a joker, I assumed he was taking the mickey out of me. But a few sessions of casual questioning without giving the game away convinced me that he had never heard of the Australian Yowie and didn't know Oz even had a Bigfoot cousin. A number of years prior to this, I had been traveling to Queensland, and the car had a diff fail in the middle of a 100-kilometer plus stretch between towns. This area is called the Pilliga Scrub, and is a huge, featureless area that people occasionally get lost in. I hitchhiked back to the town on the southern side, Coonabarabran, and arranged to get a diff brought up from Melbourne by Greyhound bus. When I asked them if the bus could drop it to me on the way past, the depot wanted to know where I was. When I told them, on the side of the road in the Pilliga, the bloke gave me a funny look and said, "Don't spend more time than you have to, and lock yourself in the car at night." I thought he was talking about the wild boars being dangerous, and passed a couple of nights uneventfully, other than pig tracks around the fire in the morning, and my kelpie farting so noxiously all night, my mate threatened to lock him in the boat. Years later, I was driving B doubles interstate and had heard some wild-sounding stories about the area. I was pulled up at a truck stop at Coonabarabran and got chatting to a local driver and asked him if he had ever heard or seen anything strange. He said that a few years earlier he had been driving B double cattle trucks through that stretch quite regularly. One night he said he was rolling through the Pilliga at about midnight at his usual 120 kilometers per hour when there was this huge crash noise, and the truck swayed violently. He said in the mirrors he could see the rear trailer swinging wildly. When he got it straightened out, he pulled up, but running 2 decks of cattle, the truck weighs a lot, and it probably takes a good kilometer or more to stop by the time he got it under control. Anyway, he thought it may have blown a few tires at once, although that's unusual, but he needs to take a look. He said the first thing he noticed when he opened the door was the cattle. They were screaming in fear, which even after whatever upset the truck is a bit weird. As he walked to the back trailer, all the tires looked okay, but there seemed to be a big shadow on the side of the back trailer. As he got closer, he realized the side of the top deck on the back trailer was caved in. He was standing there in the moonlight scratching his head, actually more like scratching his arse, when he heard a strange noise back down the highway. When he looked, he said there was something big and black running down the road towards him. He reckoned he was probably the best part of a kilometer away, looked massive, and sounded pissed. He sprinted for the cab and held it to the metal through all 18 gears till it was up to speed. Looking in his mirrors to be sure it wasn't catching him, he said that was the last time he ran cattle through there, and he still avoids it if he can. He said he doesn't usually tell anyone because I'd actually asked about anything strange and I wasn't a local, he told me. Quote, "Terror in Australia follow-up, remember? I listened to you reading an email from some blokes in Gippsland, probably a year ago, about driving home from Mo in the fog and having a big hairy creature jump out in front of them that had long, for height arms, massive rear legs folded under it, and a face more squished in and feline than a dog muzzle. I hope you remember because it got my attention as I regularly drive through the exact piece of highway and have a good friend with a dairy farm north of Trafalgar, where they're driving home to. And he reckons he probably knows who they are, even though they didn't give out their names. I don't know if you've noticed any of the current fuss in Australia about the thylacine or Tasmanian tiger, supposedly extinct on the mainland for a few thousand years and extinct in Tasmania since the last known one died in a zoo in the mid-1930s, except that in the last 50 years, since the 70s, there have been 7,000 credible sightings, some by retired police or serving military. The thing is, most of these sightings have been on the mainland, where it's supposedly been extinct for over a few thousand years. I'm very familiar with all the sounds that Aussie bush critters make, but not long after I moved in here, one night quite late, I heard a sound I've never heard before. A rough, rasping, coughing bark, quite loud and right under my open lounge window. There's nothing else that sounds like a thylacine, whatever that is. And it was actually like recordings I'd heard. I rushed outside, but there was nothing, of course. The animal that jumped onto the road in front of the guys on their way home in the fog, I believe, was probably another marsupial predator, supposedly extinct for many thousands of years. It's called a thylacoleo, or marsupial lion, and supposedly hunted megafauna when there were 15-foot-tall kangaroos and wombats the size of a Volkswagen. Scientists only know them from unearthing skeletons. And I've been to the cave systems in Narrabri, South Australia, where they have a good collection of skeletons. The skeletons they have only stand about 4 feet tall at the shoulders, and they don't mention a larger version. Instead of having huge canine teeth, like that bear skull you have behind you in the shed where you read emails, they have a long, sharp ridge of tooth on the upper and lower jaw that slices through bones like a large shear, supposedly necessary for the size bones the megafauna had. And the bone of their skull would be at least twice as thick as a bear's skulls. They would shear your leg off in a single snap, without even trying. Why do governments lie to us? What is the purpose of it? Why lie about a native animal? I'm saying that because I was made aware that in the Australian National Archives, there are dozens of newspaper reports from the same area, around Moe, M-O-E, of farmers losing livestock, then getting together and hunting the creature responsible. Not wild dogs, marsupial lions. There's a news story of 2 farmers going out, just the 2 of them, to hunt one that was taking their stock. But when they reached the edge of the bush, they thought better of it and went home. I would have too. It's about the only thing I really wouldn't want to meet on my own in the bush, despite usually hunting with my 450 Marlin guide gun. Were they actually a natural animal that actually wasn't extinct, or does our government conduct experiments and lie to cover them up like yours does, and the USA? Or is it something else coming through a wormhole and taking the form of an extinct animal? Given that the first of these news stories is from the 1850s, and they run to around the mid-1920s, I'd say they were natural animals, unless the wormhole theory is true. I wish I could get the truth, but no, I'm unlikely to. Anyway, one last gobsmacking untruth from all the governments involved in the Iraq War. Supposedly they found no weapons of mass destruction, and their intel was bad. Except that on about the 3rd day of the war, I was watching a live feed from a BBC news crew embedded in the Danish Special Forces unit. I have an interest in what different Special Forces units around the world are doing, as it's often interesting. And I spent a short time in one such unit myself. Anyway, these Danes, most people don't even know they're a part of that shit show, found a hidden entrance to an underground bunker. Hold on a sec. It's raining on the camera. Gotta put this extra hat on the camera. Make sure I don't ruin another one. There we go. They dug it out and opened it, live on camera. And once they had it open and got some lights going, as far as you could see, right back into the darkness was row after row of 44-gallon drums, all marked with skull and crossbone symbol. Chemical weapon, definitely. My theory is that the U.S. sold them to Saddam originally. Credible because the CIA were instrumental in placing him in power. And that they quietly packed it up and took it home to sell to the next government that asked them. The U.S. is still the biggest manufacturer of landmines, even though they've been banned for decades. Ditto on chemical weapons. I never saw another report or heard of anything being found after that. I'd say it slipped through the net right at the start. But then they all got the stories straight. Too embarrassing for America to get caught repatriating illegal weapons to resell, although it's a great business if you can get away with it. I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't watched it myself. Better stop before I get a visit in the middle of the night from the guys wearing all black. Speaking of which, in the middle of COVID, a friend of mine was stopped at a checkpoint much further east than me. She lives down there, in the middle of nowhere on the main highway. Many clicks from towns in either direction by men in black, with face masks, helmets, automatic weapons slung on their shoulders. They didn't identify themselves, and she's never been able to uncover who they were or what they were doing there. It wasn't happening anywhere else. Yes, regular police roadblocks, but they had ID and behaved normally. I've always wondered what dirty little government secret they were trying to keep hidden from regular taxpayers. If you're ever in Australia, make your way down to the southeast in Victoria. You'd be most welcome, especially if you want to hunt winter, April to October. Just email me. You can have my number. We have 5 deer species: fallow, red, sika, chital, C-H-I-T-A-L, and my local one is sambar. Sambar are between elk and moose in size and are apparently the most difficult deer species to hunt. They have incredible sight, even better hearing, and better again smell. Supposedly because they come from India, and their natural predator is the tiger. Anyway, they are often in thick brush that is impossible to move silently in, and sometimes you'll get honked. It's like having a really loud car horn go off. Sometimes as close as 10 or 15 feet away, and it scares the crap out of you. But you still won't catch a glimpse of them. Often you won't even hear them moving away. How such a big-bodied deer moves through thick brush so silently is a mystery. If they honk you, the game's up. They know where you are and what you are. Although mostly, you'll just never know you were near one, unless you are downwind and very close. Then you can smell them. Stay safe, keep sharing so everyone gets heard in a safe place. I haven't ever told anyone about being shadowed. It's just too weird for most people. Cheers, Andrew. And P.S. a final thought. Why does the U.S. and Canada have so much more Sabe and Dogman interactions than any other countries? Yes, there are cousins of Sabe around the world, but interactions are few and far between. I've never heard of Dogmen in any other part of the world, other than maybe 1 or 2 possible reports from Germany and England, but it's usually American servicemen involved. I think there are a lot of things that those governments are doing that need to be exposed. The sooner the better. All right, I appreciate your email, my man. Big time. You found the right place to do it. The governments, yeah, well, it's no question about it now. It's for a long time for most of us, right? But everything's kept from us. Every single thing. Our true history is kept from us. Healthy food's kept from us. Freedom's kept from us. Freedom of speech is kept from us. Truth of what's put in vaccines is kept from us. Everything's kept from us. We are just worker honeybees, right? It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. It really bugs me. Because I am a fan of the truth, right? And I could never consider myself to be a bit of a dumbass if I stayed focused on one truth, like the Sabe, the Sasquatch topic, because it all leads to so much more, right? And there's my frustration with the people who are intent on setting game cams, staring at dermal ridges. I'm a doctor, and I've been staring and talking about dermal ridges and mid-tarsal breaks for years. Said no intelligent person ever. Right? If your brain's firing independently, the second you have this truth slapped in your face, you question everything and you start digging and trying to find out why the F we're being misled and lied to about everything. Every single thing. It's very frustrating. Right? Man, lots of bugs crawling on me this past week. I'll bite my lip there, because you know I can rant on about that shit. Now, what's this one? These are recent. This one's recent. I tried to mix it up, right? Recent, archives, recent, back in, because of some of my past screw-ups. Losing emails from my notes. Moving along. First edition, The Kids Last Night. Howdy, Steve, and the round table. Sunday, September 1st, 2024. The Forest Kids woke me a little after 3 a.m. just 7 hours ago. I've cleared and raked my camp area, a 5-yard radius from the fire pit. 3 kids called from the perimeter of my clearing, placing each of them within 10 yards of my bedroll in the truck. Their adolescent chaperone was some 50 yards away. The first kid's call sounded somewhat like a mountain lion cub's chirp, but musical akin to a tropical bird. The second kid's call was so unusual, I can only compare it to a lemur or a capybara chirp. The third kid's call was almost familiar. Imagine a young fox getting bombed by a great horned owl and the alert that fox would issue. It was slightly musical like a gibbon and slightly pretty like a peacock. The kids each made their call about 8 times, while the first 2 kids calling over each other's calls as though they were competing. As soon as I laughed out loud saying, quote, "Did you guys just get back from jet setting a vacation to a South American jungle? Now you're back to show off your new talents?" The third kid answered with, number 1, mind speak, quote, "Something like that," end quote. Number 2, heartfelt love, bracket, what some refer to as a zap, or more accurately, kundalini. Number 3, and his odd fox cry, all at once and all at the same time, same moment. He repeated his call, inviting me to mimic, like a young mother might repeat apple juice to her toddler. We took 3 turns mimicking this fox call, kundalini exchange, and mind speak. By the end of this exchange, we verified that the forest kid was driving a fox that barked in prime numbers at me from 40 yards just a few nights ago. Again, these barks were just a little too long in duration and too numerous to be anything ordinary. I closed the mind speak with, quote, "I'm going to record audio of your odd fox call," end quote. As I fumbled for the cheap Android phone and microphone, the chaperone let out a few great horned calls telling the kids to go silent. I recorded for a few minutes, nothing. Afterwards, I sat in absolute silence listening, nothing. Then I got mind speak from, quote, "Fox," end quote. Put the country music back on. I'd fallen asleep that dark, leaving my country mix playing all night. Who knows how long those kids were hanging around the embers of the campfire listening to music, though my snoring before they got bored and woke me up for the call competition. I turned the music back on. Some raunchy Wheeler Walker type of song, lyrics about blank farts or some such thing. I immediately got a mind speak. The old stuff. I fell back asleep playing Don Edwards songs for Fox. This morning, I checked the finely raked sand for tracks and there was nothing. Not even the usual mouse, beetle, or nor skunk. This report is all fun and games. I'll close with the following. Bad encounters. I too have heard horror stories, overwhelming dread, lost time, blackouts, and such. In my direct experience of campfire chats, 100% of bad encounters can be written off as lack of perception, undue fear, and city folks' stupidity. The forest people are super empathic. They can feel our stupid emotions at a mile or more, especially the little ones. It makes them very uncomfortable. I can't stress this enough. Steve, imagine that I'm your idiot asshole neighbor. You know that I exist, but I'm so dumb, your existence is just a dumb rumor to me. I camp in your front yard, pissing, shitting, playing music, and ranting about politics. I burst through your front door yelling and emoting fear, frightening your children. What is Steve going to do? Roar at a distance? Stare me down at 60 yards? Toss tiny pebbles? Maybe shake a tree or break a few limbs? I think we know what Steve would do. That's all for now. Lefty. Mogollon Rim, Arizona. Okay, man, appreciate you. Keep us posted. Throw us some knowledge that the silly humans need, if you got some. That we really, really need. I'm all over it. Fox. Why does that name Fox sound familiar to me? Sorry, I heard something off to the left there. Remember last year? I don't know if you even remember. I had a video last year. I might have shared it on here. I had a bear come in and give me a little semi-go. Sucker, he was coming straight at me. He could see me, and he's coming in slowly, and I talked at him. And he stopped and paused, and then he went sideways to me, kept looking at me, and he started doing. He circled all the way around me. He knew exactly what it was. And black bears, a lot of people have been killed by black bears, so the amount of black bears running around up here right now, I take a little moment out and look around. They're not the smoothest stalkers, that's for sure. That's the only good thing about a black bear. They don't know how to stalk smoothly. Not like a cat. Or a grizzly bear. A grizzly bear will ambush your ass. But not a black bear. They're black, you can see them easy, and they're just not that intelligent. One time I had a black bear who was intentionally coming to kill me and eat me as a meal, knowing I was a human being. Probably one of the most creepy memories I've ever had in my outdoor, in my lifetime in the real world. And that bear was about 60 feet from me, and a hunter I was guiding. I had on Carhartt coveralls with a red hoodie and a cowboy hat on, looking at him. Not even a leaf between me and that bear. I'm like, get out of here. And he went like this. And then he came back, looked at me, and he started doing a crawl like that. Like a cat stalking a toy in the carpet. That was one of all the grizzly bear shit I've had happen in my life and other things. That's one of the creepiest things ever, because that's a blatant 100% predator. I mean, he's like a 250-pound bear. Looking at me, locked on me, and stalking, getting ready to rush to 100% kill me and eat me. Right? It doesn't have to be a great big grizzly bear to be a terrifying moment. And a bullet to the head ended that pretty quick. Anyways, so yeah, I look around every once in a while. In case I can see that black fur of a dumb bear doing something real dumb. Sorry about that interruption. Got me sidetracked. I get sidetracked a lot, don't I? What do we got here? Alright, now. Where are we? Got such a mixture of emails in here. Just a quick slice of what you must already suspect. All right. I'm all ears. What do you got? Hiya, Steve. You're a superstar. Sidhi powers that Sabe have. Sidhi powers that Sabe have and their close physical relationship with humans must be key in the cover-up. This alone would command every resource the powers that be have to keep humans from realizing their own potential. I repeat, they will do anything to keep humans distracted, confused about their incredible abilities because they're in us too, obviously. This is so obvious. God forbid Sabe would begin to teach us these abilities, but they possibly know humans are not mature enough. Yet, truly I feel this time is close. The truth is now coming out thanks to you and folk like you who have great integrity. The truth is indestructible and had to come out. Love you guys so much, and blessings from Ireland. Again, Jamie. It's a great email, Jamie, and I agree. I was actually thinking, I don't know why, I was daydreaming about that today, the distractions. If your brain's firing independently, then I don't have to explain anything about the distractions being imposed on society today. It's out of hand. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. Everything's a distraction. Every single thing is distraction gets fed to you on mainstream. Everything. Unless you could find that fair amount of truth sharers now who do share the truth, and they keep doing it, they keep doing it, they keep doing it because they give a shit about you. And they should be listened to above everyone else. But when it gets to mainstream, it's all distractions. Every single bit of it. Alright, here's another one. Portal Encounter. It's the title of this email. Hello Steve, share my name if you'd like. I live in Michigan. Around 20 years ago, I realized the forest people were real and became obsessed with understanding them. My third encounter was trying to sneak up on a group of them, but when I crossed the river and climbed through the brush, I wasn't where I was supposed to be. The terrain was totally different. I walked through a portal. It was in a location of a day watcher. I think he hopped through the portal that they can go through at will, and I went through it too. I felt like I was in a higher elevation, and it looked like dry mud with dry cattails in front of me. The crazy part is that there were orbs all over, and when I could see one, I would turn my head fast and say, I don't want to see that shit. I ended up getting hit with infrasound hard and followed my footprints back. Some of the forest people go to a parallel planet of Earth that's on a higher frequency than we can relate to. Sounds crazy, but it really happened, thanks. Alright, that does sound pretty crazy, alright? We've never ever had anybody write in and say, so I'm sneaking up on this group of Sasquatch, and you wouldn't believe what happened to me. That, for me, is a bit of a red flag, because if I was sneaking up on a group of Sasquatch people, I'd probably be writing into the people explaining exactly what I saw, because it would be absolutely freaking bizarre to look over there, right there. There's a group of frickin' Sasquatch right there. I'm gonna go sneak up on their asses. And by the way, I went through a portal, right? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just telling you about how you delivered your experience, man. Think about it. I saw this group of Sasquatches this one day. I'm not going to describe them, what they were sitting on, how they were facing, were they talking, were they eating, were they having a beer. You know what I mean? So, follow up. What did you see? What did they look like? How big were they? Did they see you? How far away was it? How did you know they were there? How did you sneak up on a group of Sasquatch people, forest people? Right? Big gap in that one. Thanks for sending it, though. See what comes. See what comes. I'm just telling you how my brain accepted that one and how it reacted to it, right? What else do we got? Alright, one more. Then I gotta go pack up camp. This is from the past. Somebody waiting a long time to be heard. They're getting heard now. Hi, Steve. I was watching a YouTube channel where a guy was telling stories from a guy's book. One was called Saran Wrap. I heard the story and almost hyperventilated. It was exactly what I saw. And I've tried to email my experience to you 3 times now. Here it is again. I'm sorry for any spelling or punctuation errors. This all started in the summer of 2015. I was living alone with my 2 dogs in a very rural part of Northern California. I lived about 30 miles from the California-Nevada border, in the part of Plumas County that was, for the most part, rugged wilderness. My home sat at an elevation just about 5,000 feet in a very small town that was once the location of a huge lumber mill, but now all that remains are the old mill ponds. My town has a population of around 150 people. There are no traffic lights, gas stations, or grocery stores for 15 miles either direction, and if you blinked going down Highway 70, you'd miss it. One day, the younger female dog I owned disappeared. She's gone for a handful of days, maybe a week, and I'd assume she'd become mountain lion food. During the time she was missing, I started experiencing a lot of sleep paralysis. It seemed to be happening every time I laid my head down. I'd feel myself starting to fall asleep, and then instantly I was paralyzed with a sensation of something extremely heavy on top of me. It felt like something was attacking me in a demonic level. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the only way I can describe the feeling that I was having. After the 3rd day, I started to calm down when the attack would happen instead of panicking. Let me read that smoothly. After the 3rd day, I started to calm down when the attack would happen instead of panicking. A little punctuation threw me off there. That's when I started to teach myself how to come out of the paralysis by focusing my energy on a small body part, like a finger or toe, using everything I could muster to barely move the 1 digit, and from there I could move the rest of my hand or a foot, eventually an ankle or a wrist. By the time I moved my whole arm or leg, I would come out of the paralysis, and I'd learned how to completely stop it from happening. As soon as I stopped the sleep paralysis episodes from happening, my dog returned home, which was weird, because I expected her to never come back, and I was excited to see her. Yet after 1 day of her being home, and no sleep paralysis, something new started happening. It was early in the morning, probably between 1 and 2 a.m. The dogs woke me up. They were whining, crying, and jumping on my bed. They didn't want to eat or go outside to go to the bathroom. They just wanted to climb under the blankets and shake at my feet in bed. Strange, I couldn't figure out why they were so upset, and they never acted like this. That was a long sentence. As I was trying to figure out what was wrong with my dogs in the middle of the night, wham! Something slammed into the side of my trailer so hard it knocked the pictures off the walls. It shook the whole house and rattled the windows. Then, just as quickly as it started, it was over. The dogs calmed down, I went back to sleep, and by the time I woke up the next morning, I hardly remembered that it happened. That was until 2 a.m. the next morning when the dog started in all over again. Whining, barking, jumping up and down on the bed. The older male dog that I had even urinated on itself. And that's when it happened again. Bam! Something slammed into the side of the house so hard, again it knocked the pictures off the wall. Hell, it knocked the clock down. And that jogged my memory of the night before. It went on for 3 weeks, 5 nights a week. It was almost clockwork until I got all the external lights, motion detector, floodlights, and every light I had on the outside of my house all pointed towards the front porch and driveway. It lit up the whole front yard, and I had it all set up so that I can flick the switches on and quickly throw the front door open. I was determined to find out what was slamming on my house late at night. I also had a Ruger Vaquero, 45 long Colt revolver with a full cylinder of wad cutters. I felt like I could take down a bear. So, that night, I was ready. The dogs went off. The dogs went off. They began acting crazy. I waited, and when I felt the slam into the side of the house, I had the lights turned on and the front door open before the pictures hit the floor. I threw the front door open and stepped out onto the porch looking for something. I was thinking it was an animal. That's when I saw the silhouette of a head and shoulders peek out from behind a big pine tree in my front yard. It was trying to stick to the shadows, but I could make out the dark silhouette of a man. It ducked under one of the branches of the pine tree as it peeked its head out from around the tree to look at me standing on my porch 25 feet away, and I yelled out, "I can see you." It quickly pulled its head back underneath the branch and tucked itself behind the tree, and I yelled again, "Hey, I can see you." That's when it took off across my front yard through the floodlight and jumped into the ditch that ran alongside of the road. The only thing was that this thing was cloaked like the Predator movie. I could see a blurry outline of this thing moving 2 arms, 2 legs, shoulders, a head, but in the middle of it, the center was completely see-through. This thing was like the movie The Predator. And as I asked God in my head to please not let me think I was going insane, if he could show me this creature one more time, just so I knew I was seeing what I was seeing and that it was real. The thing jumped up out of the ditch and ran across the road. I took off running, jumped off the porch and down the driveway, chasing after it, yelling the whole time, "I can see you, I can see you." I'd never drawn down on the silhouette of a human being before, so the idea of pointing a revolver at it didn't occur to me for 1 second. I almost forgot that I had the revolver in my hand completely, but I do know one thing. Once this thing knew that I could see it, it wanted nothing to do with me. I got the feeling then and feel still to this day like it was much more afraid of me than I was afraid of it. That was the last time the sound happened. The dogs never went crazy. The sleep paralysis stopped. None of it ever happened again. I moved out of that trailer 6 months after that, and I've had nothing but ridicule, belittling, demeaning jokes made at my expense about my sanity and sobriety. But I know what I saw. I know what happened with the sleep paralysis, and I know that my dog disappearing, that all have something to do with one another. I just can't figure out what it is. Punctuation's throwing me off, all right? We'll get it. Anyway, that's my story. I swear it happened the same way I've written it down and told you today. And oh yeah, one more thing. The next morning when I looked into my front yard, the tree branch that this thing had ducked its head under, that branch was a good 2 feet above my head, and I'm 6'3" and 280 pounds. I just happened to be standing on my porch that night, 3 feet off the ground, and being a 6 foot tall guy, I just figured that it was relatively my same size. Until the next morning when I went out and stood next to the tree that I had been hiding behind, then it dawned on me just how big this thing was. I would say it would have had to have been around 8 feet tall, and it moved quietly and swift as the wind. I was running after it as fast as I could that night, and it had crossed the street, jumped the fence into a horse pasture, and was gone before I could get to the end of my driveway. I don't mind if you use my name. Feel free to ask any questions about it. Please. I've been telling anyone who will listen since it happened, and I'm surprised how few people will listen or care. I've lost all credibility with my family and peers, and I've become the butt of every joke you can imagine. Zach Chiatovich. Zach, I hope I didn't butcher your last name, buddy. And I believe you. I believe your story. My gut says it's absolutely authentic, and I got your back, and so does everybody else here. Family members think you don't have credibility, huh? Well, maybe share this video with them and tell them to ram it up their asses, right? Share this with them. Tell them to listen to a few more. Ask them if they're ever going to get tired of being part of the dumb community, right? The dummies, the followers, the honeybee workers. I hate hearing about people having their credibility shit on, or the theft of quality of life because of seeing what they didn't ask to see. It really angers me at times, frustrates me. But we're getting there, right? We're getting there. We're getting it heard. We're getting it known. It's gaining speed. It's picking up speed. It's not slowing down, is it? Not slowing down. I remember, I don't know how many times I had hate mail in the past, people telling me, you're going to be the demise of your channel, you're going to disappear, you're going to blah, blah, blah. Yeah? Look at us now. Suckers, right? You can't stop this shit. You can't stop this channel. You can't stop the people. You can't. And so many tried. Right? I'm super tired and babbling. Share this video with those people. Tell them to poke it. Losing credibility for telling the truth, right? Isn't that happening a lot these days? It's kind of embarrassing. Anyway. Tired. I gotta pack up, get ready to travel. Get the Miss Sarah taken care of. Get her back to being a normal person again instead of an obsessed huntress. Oh my God, what have I created? Crazy. Share my story, howtohunt.com. Get it into me. Get your truth shared, alright? No matter what, I know there's a pile of people out there who want to and are going to send in the stories and haven't yet. I know for a fact. I ran into strangers the length of this province, told them the same thing about the one young man we went on the way up, said his dad's going to write in a story one of these days. Had other people I ran into saying they want to write in, they just haven't yet. No big deal. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Get your truth shared. Get your truth shared. Anybody waiting on their decals, stickers, t-shirts, hats, Sarah will be back at it day after tomorrow, getting all those stuffed in the mail. The link for that's in the bottom below. And I think I'm going to start firing in some more hunting experiences on my How to Hunt channel. I have a lot of people this year have emailed me photos of their success and given thanks directly to me for sharing some knowledge with them that helped them with their success. And I'm going to share some of those photos and emails on the How to Hunt channel because they deserve to be shared. And it's good stuff, right? Anyway, I'm babbling. Gotta go. I'll try to be back tomorrow. Hit the links below if you want, or not.